I got my own opinions on board certification and recertification. Basically, I think it's bullshit. I don't think it actually assesses anything with regards to competency, especially surgical specialties, because you cannot tell me what my surgical technique is based on competency testing assessments. You don't know if I'm a butcher in the OR. I think it's a CYA thing. And the problem is that most of the public thinks that passing tests actually equals competency, and it doesn't. I personally
You're coming in hot tonight.
I think it's bull. We know that we have worked with people who could pass a test with their eyes closed, but you wouldn't let that person touch you with a 10-foot pole. And y'all know that that's true.
All right, what's good, everyone? This is Dr. Nee, and I should say newly minted board certified general surgeon, trauma surgeon, locum surgeon for about 12 years now. And
newly minted?
Because I just recertified myself. That's why.
Newly minted. That's
what do you call that?
Newly minted.
Either way, we're going to get into that a little bit right after this. And also a host of Docs Outside the Box. I'm your boy, Dr. Nee. I'm joined by
Dr. Renee, boing man. Did you miss me?
Okay. All right. So listen, let's get back to this issue of board certification real quick. So listen, your boy's been out for 10 years, and every 10 years, at least for the American Board of Surgery, you got to recert, right? So you got to take a test again to show that you know as much as you know in general surgery, and you get board certified. But anybody who has taken a board examination, whether you're in medical school, residency, and damn sure if you're 10 years out, there's a lot of anxiety with having to take that test all over again. So yeah, every 10 years in the past, you would have to take this test, right? And this test covered everything, even though most surgeons, most people who go into their specialty, they only really focus on a certain area, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, I focus on trauma, acute care surgery. I don't do much breast. I don't do much cancer outside of like cancers that, you know, are in the belly and you need to operate on them emergently. But all the things that go into like understanding all the things like the cytokines and all that stuff, I don't remember all that stuff. So for me, it's a big deal to like say, yo, I got to take this test, this recertification test. And they got rid of it several years ago. I think ACOG did that also, which I think is an amazing thing. Mm-hmm. But a lot of these specialties have gotten rid of like taking this big certifying test, a formal test for a whole host of reasons. But for me, I'm just happy that I don't have to take that test. But I think the thing that you have to do is you have to show like a certain amount of continual education. So you have to get CME. And you have to show that over like a 5-year or 10-year period, that every year or however long, like you are doing continuous medical education. You going to conferences, you going to, you doing something online, something that you got to pay for to get CME, you doing it. Mm-hmm. Right. Then you got to be in good standing. You got to have a license. You got to hold. Look, I'm not getting into it. But either way, I did it. And it wasn't exactly an ice water enema to get recertified, but it was still painful.
It was damn near close.
It was close.
An ice water enema.
So this is what they do. So rather than having to take this long ass test like you had to in the past and you studying for this test, now what they did is they gave you 40 questions that you have to, it's open book.
Open book.
Yeah. Open book.
Open articles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, how about this? Why don't you say, what's it like for ACOG to recert?
So we do ours every year. We do our maintenance of certification every year. And every year, as long as you hit a certain threshold.
What does that mean, certain threshold?
For the score, then you stay within this cycle where you don't necessarily have to sit for this big standardized test.
Nobody's trying to do that. So the way that
the ACOG recertification works is that you have to do 15 articles. Each article has about 8 questions. And you read the articles and you answer the questions per the article that is presented to you. Pretty straightforward.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
But the American Board of Surgery, if y'all listening, if you pay attention to Docs Outside the Box, listen, we got to talk. I don't understand the rationale of why you guys decide to do something completely different. So the way how it is, it's 40 questions, 40 random questions. You can choose the type of questions you get. Like you can say, well, I just want to focus on general surgery. Or you could say, I want to focus on breast or whatever.
You have categories.
You have categories.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get a set of questions,
Mm-hmm.
it's open book.
Open article.
And it's basically it's open articles. You're using articles to help you answer the question. And you can't go past the question that is currently in front of you. So there's no going back and there's no going forward. You answer the question in front of you, you get instant feedback, and then you move forward. What I didn't like about it is open article meant that you had to go through at least 40 different articles and find the right article. You have to first of all deduce that what they're asking you correlates to the article that they gave you. Then you have to go through that article and make sure that you're answering it correctly.
You have to deduce that it correlates to one of the articles that
Correct.
they gave you, right? Because they don't give you
and
the
there's
actual
multiple multiple articles cover the same thing.
So
It's just
what you showed me was this. You showed me a question, and then I said, okay, well, where's the article? And then you showed me a whole list of articles. And when I say it was a list of articles. And you're like, yeah, the answer's somewhere in one of these articles. I'm like, which one? And you're like, they don't tell you which article it's in.
I didn't like that at all. I didn't like that at all. And, look, you're doing the test by yourself. You're taking a test by yourself. But I just felt like there's got to be a better way than having to go through and figure out which article you're asking this question from. I'm sorry, American Board of Surgery, if you're listening right now, the way how you do this continuous certification, this assessment, it doesn't make sense to me. I think it makes more sense. Give me articles, and at the end of the articles, I answer the questions related to that article. Yeah. Like, why would you? I didn't like this at all, but I passed. So I want my certification. And for all those, all the people who are pocket watching, just go to American Board of Surgery, type in my name, Darko, you'll see board certified.
Yeah, it just seems that they made it unnecessarily, unnecessarily difficult.
Yeah.
For no reason. I'm like, first of all, most people, like even if their rationale was, well, if you were looking for literature on something, right, that you wouldn't know exactly what article to go to, I'm like, okay, that's fine. But once you do have the article, that's at the point at which you would present the question to yourself. What would I do, during this management? So I don't know why they made you go through the exercise of actually finding the article first.
Makes no sense.
Like that doesn't make any sense.
It's basically the same thing. If you've taken an MCAT, it's the same thing as, okay, every question, and I'm just giving you biochem textbook, orgo textbook, physics textbook, whatever, English textbook.
Yeah, and just find it.
You find the answer in there. That's it. That's the equivalent of what they gave me.
Yeah.
And I was like, this doesn't make any sense.
It was.
I don't like this.
For me, it was just more of
American surgeon or surgeons out there, rise up. Because I filled out that survey. I let them have it. I was like, no, this doesn't make any sense. You got to change this.
Yeah.
Look, I'm okay with the continuous certification. That's great, but this, anyway.
What do you think the like the whole process, or what do you think the whole process of continuing certification, like what's the purpose? Like the real purpose, not we need to make sure that doctors are up to par and blah, blah, blah. And even board certifying doctors take out people's, liver thinking it's their spleen.
You want, I think that it has to do with, I think the premise is it better to assess someone's competency like continuously, like over a several year span, or is it better to just like not hear from them, but then 10 years later their ability to show competence is all that matters, right? So basically it's one or the other. Like, do you want to know how they're doing continuously, or do you want to see it one shot at all? It's one shot in a certain spectrum. And obviously, I think everybody would say, yeah, like you want to see this person continuously see how they're doing and stuff, right? I don't know how effective it is. I know that it reduces the
That's what I was
anxiety.
going to say.
I don't care about any of the other stuff. I just know about this test. And I know that for the sake of testing and so forth, I'd rather have the latter, which is, look, I take this shortened version of this test. I show you proof that I'm continuously getting myself educated by me showing you seeing me. There's references that you can go to and ask them questions because they're going to go and ask them, does this person have any red flags about them and so forth? Are they involved in any like continuous, program improvement? I get that part. It's just that the way in which they asked the question, that part I had a major problem with. So all the other stuff, it's like,
well, I got my own opinions on board certification and recertification, and basically, I think it's bullshit the way that they do it. And I don't think it actually assesses anything with regards to competency, especially as it relates to surgical specialties, because you cannot tell me what my surgical technique is based on, competency testing assessments. You can't tell me what that is. You don't know if I'm a butcher, in the OR. You don't know anything about actually what I actually do. I think it's a CYA thing. You and I have talked about this offline, but I think it's a CYA thing for these organizations to just say, hey, we covered our asses. We gave the doctors a test. And the problem is that most of the public thinks that taking tests actually equals your passing test actually equals competency. And it doesn't. As we know that, like I just kind of referenced, there are board certified physicians and surgeons who really just aren't practicing medicine in any way, shape, or form under any standard. So that's how you can have a board certified surgeon taking out someone's, liver when it was supposed to be when he was supposed to be taking out their spleen. How do you like if he says, well,
technically, we don't know if they're board certified, though.
Well, most likely he is, right? Let's just put it out there. He was working at an institution. Most institutions are going to check whether or not you're board certified. So I'm going to say, for argument's sake, that he most likely was board certified. If he wasn't, that's also on the institution.
Yeah, make sure you guys let us know. If someone knows the details of that, let us know if they're board certified.
But I personally,
but you coming in hot tonight.
I personally think that I think it's bull. I think it's bull. And I think we all know that it's bull. I think all of us as physicians, as much as we want to big up that, we board certified now, we know that thing doesn't mean anything, because we know that we have worked with people who could pass a test with their eyes closed, but wouldn't let you wouldn't let that person touch you with a 10-foot pole. And y'all know that that's true. But that's all I'm going to say. But I am coming in hot because I've been out for some time. Did you miss me?
I'm going to just let you keep cooking. You want to keep cooking?
Well, I will just say this, where I was.
All right, we moving on, guys.
I was going to say where I was.
Okay, hurry up. Come on, moving on.
So I spent a week in a Canadian hospital with my mother, who was visiting Canada and ended up having emergency surgery. So my brother called me on a Sunday. This is kind of going to go into what we're going to be talking about today. But my brother called me on a Sunday at noon, and by 5:30 I was on a plane to Canada to go see my mom, drop the kids off at your sister's house, my sister-in-law. And you ended up leaving work just a day early to just come and get the kids, take them to school the next day. I spent a week there tending to my mother, making sure that she was getting the care that she was supposed to. And by the way, just again, along these lines, just letting you know that when I went and examined my mother, I found that she had a surgical belly, but they had no intention of doing surgery on her until I asked specifically, did you check for diverticulitis? They had not. So they took her to a CT scan, to another CT scan, I should say, because they only did chest and abdomen. They didn't do chest, abdomen, and pelvis, which is where they found what the issue was. So yeah, essentially I diagnosed my mother and got her into surgery, which she desperately needed. So that's where I was. And we probably should talk about my experience at the Canadian hospital on another episode. But that I just wanted to point out that I spent a week there. And I was able to do that because I work locums and I didn't have any
Yo, how you
obligation.
stop? How are you going? What do you call it? How are you going to bring that on to?
What? What is so funny?
Oh,
I don't understand what's so
snap!
funny.
First
But
of
it's true.
all, you couldn't record during that time. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about
Well,
how
but
you
hold
couldn't
on.
record about that stuff.
Wait.
Let's talk. No. I'm finished. I'm.
Wait,
First of all, I'm the
just
host of the show.
saying.
Can I finish my point, please?
I didn't finish my point.
No,
I'm
you
just
can't finish
saying,
your point.
I worked locum.
Point of privilege is.
Oh my goodness! Is Robert Rules of Order now?
You didn't finish recording, so you owe me some episodes. First of all.
What?
Right, you do. You owe me some episodes.
Anyway.
And then get on to this. So the reason why.
You don't hear that your mother-in-law was in a Canadian.
Well, you're the one who circled it to the reason why you're able to do this is because of locums. You didn't even say anything about like, yo, the Lord done saved my mama and you ain't say none of that.
I'm talking about. I'm trying to stay on task. I'm trying to stay on task here. We can talk about my experience later, but I wanted to make the point today. Right? I want to make the point tonight, that the reason that I was able to spend a week and not have to worry about what was going on with, my job, my this, that, is because I work locums. And I think that.
Yeah, I lost some money though. I had to come home early.
Anyway, I think that, having the schedule that I have, working locums the way that we do affords us, these opportunities, if you will. I don't know if that's an opportunity, but it allows us to be able to be free, to do things that come up very unexpectedly. So,
well, look, shout out to your mom. And we'll get on another episode and talk about that and stuff. So thank goodness for the way in which we work, because that allowed us to be pretty flexible with you going out to Montreal to be with your mom and take care of her, and then allowed me to come back home ASAP and be with the kids and so forth. So we're going to get into that, but we're going to talk a little bit about locums. But hold on, let's take a real quick break and we'll be right back. All right, we are back. So we got questions. I can answer any question that anybody has because I have all the answers. So we got a question.
For entertainment purposes only.
We got a question from Kim B. She says, I am a third-year medical student at Touro College of Osteopathic Medicine. I've been following Docs Outside the Box, and I love your podcast. I met you both at AMEC. That's the Annual Medical Educational Conference for the Student National Medical Association. That was, what was that this year? It was in St. Louis?
No.
It was New Orleans.
Yeah,
in New Orleans, and was inspired by your craft. I'm interested in medical missions and participated in many mission trips to Ghana. I'm also interested in OB-GYN and would love to have a quick meeting with Dr. Renee about the specialty and how to incorporate medical missions into your practice while raising a family. Please let me know if that's possible. So, Kim B., shout out to you, third-year medical student at Touro. This is a good question. So what I wanted to say, the reason I brought this up is obviously this has a lot to do with locums. This has a lot to do with medical missions, and also raising a family. And so I just wanted to jump into this and say, if you had a chance to meet with her, she presented this to you, what would you say to her?
Well, first of all, I would tell her that all of that is possible. I mean, she's already doing the medical missions. I know she's only in her third year and she's going to be going to residency, so that, after she goes into residency, after next year, she can still do the medical missions, but it might look, a little bit different in terms of kind of timing, right? So it all depends on what her residency program allows. If you are going international, some residency programs will actually let you take 2 weeks at a time. But some other residency programs may not necessarily allow that. Some residency programs might actually let you take an elective as a medical mission as an elective. So, that's one thing, or those are some questions that you might want to ask of a residency program. Exactly how could you continue the medical mission work that you're already doing in Ghana. So, I don't know if that would be a deal breaker for you in terms of residency, because I think the point of residency is that you need to just get out.
Yeah.
You need to get out. Now, as far as raising a family, of course, I mean, you can make, here's the thing about medicine. There's no cookie cutter way of doing it, right? Like I can tell you the way that we do it, but there literally is no cookie cutter way of doing it.
Actually, let me chime in because I actually have an example of someone who's doing this right now.
Okay.
So when I did my fellowship, I met one of the fellows above me. Went and did she's trauma critical care, practiced on the other coast, and decided like 3 years in that she didn't want to practice in the United States anymore. She actually grew up as a missionary in Africa. I think it was Zambia. Long story short, she's a surgeon. Her husband is not. And I think she took her, I think it's 1 or 2 children. I can't remember. But they went to Zambia and they're practicing right now, doing medical mission work right now. They've been there for 3 years. So I have some notes here. One of the notes that I have here says kids are mad resilient.
Yes.
So I think if you're going to raise kids in a different country, just know that usually the biggest holdup is you.
Is the parent.
Not the kids. The kids have don't usually have that many problems with, you know, the change in scenery or the change in resources. They can figure it out. Usually it's the family member or the parent or the adult who has a difficult time.
Yes.
So one of the things that I would say also is, you know, make sure you know how long you can practice outside of the United States. Like if you are going overseas, if this is going to be a short stint, and I would say a short stint would likely be probably a year or less. Most people who do medical mission work are probably going to do like 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a little bit longer. But there's some folks who maybe do a year, and there's some people who want to do even longer than that. But I would say if you're going to go a year or longer, make sure you check with your specialty group. Make sure you also check with your state license, because the experience that you have in another country, that may or may not be acceptable as actual experience in the United States. You know how arrogant we are, right? So you may be doing a whole bunch of surgeries in, you know, wherever. Pick a country.
Ghana.
In Ghana. I don't know this for a fact because I haven't looked it up because I haven't stayed that long.
I thought you had all the answers, but okay.
She got me there.
I be listening.
She got me
I
there.
be listening.
All right. So you can be not supposed to be listening that hard, but listen. Listen, guys. Listen. Come listen. So I'm telling y'all, make sure you check out with your specialty group how long you can actually not be practicing in the United States, or if the country that you're going to be practicing in, like if you can transfer that, you know, those patient experiences over. Yeah. Because that can help either extend or it may shorten your trip overseas. Right. So that's really important to know. And then also, actually, where would you want to practice?
Where would I want to
overseas.
practice?
Where would you want to practice?
In Ghana.
Really?
Yeah.
What about Haiti?
Ghana. If it were more stable, yeah. You know, if Haiti were more stable, then absolutely. You know, I think going back to that point of, you know, how long you're going to be out of the country and will your trip be truncated or extended? Like you said, you know, look up what is required in your specialty. A lot of times in OBGYN, a lot of these credentialing committees want at least 60 deliveries over, I think, 2 years or something like that. I don't know if the numbers have changed or not, but a lot of these credentialing committees in hospitals, you know, they want to see a certain number of deliveries. They want to see a certain number of, you know, of surgeries that you've done. So just kind of keep that in mind. The other thing is, yeah, you might decide to live, right? And this is kind of something that we're talking about, but, you know, moving to Ghana, right? So we've talked about, okay, moving to Ghana in a couple of years and what that would look like for us. And that might mean that you live in a different country. You decide you want to do medical missions in that medical country and you live there, but you come back to the United States every now and then to stack cash, right? So in Haiti, we would call that va-et-vient, coming and going, right? So you come, you work some locums work, you know, you do your thing, you know, for a few weeks, then you go back home. Yeah. You know, you go back home to your international country and
I know someone who's doing that right now.
Yeah.
I know someone who's doing that. They are in trauma, acute care surgery. They actually live across the Atlantic Ocean, and they actually live in a third world country.
Yeah.
And they come to the
We
United
say
States.
developing country.
That's true. Developing country. They come there and they stack cash, and then they go back to their country and they do whatever work they do there for a significant period of time. So there's so many ways that you can make this work.
Right.
That's the best part for me. The best part is, Kim, is, yes, like if we were to meet with you personally, like that's exactly what we would tell you, which is, get as much experience as possible, work with as many people as possible, and see how they do things. And what you end up doing is you'll pick up like positives from one person, negatives from another person, and then you'll kind of decide what type of career that you may want to have, whether it's hybrid, you're in the United States and also doing work in another country, or, you just may want to just completely jump ship and just be
Figure
overseas.
Out how to make it work overseas.
That's kind of what we did with locums. Like we got out, and in my experience as a resident, I had no experience with any attendings who did locums. As a fellow, I had no experience with anybody who did locums except for you, Renee. And I just said I wanted to do it.
I was in attending and you were still in training.
I was.
Right.
You were definitely funding my lifestyle.
You called me Dr. Volney and I called you Nee.
Yes.
Yes.
That did not happen, guys, but
it really did.
In your mind,
it really didn't, because one time you introduced me to your medical students as Renee while you were technically still a resident and I was technically an attending, and they sitting there calling you Dr. Darko and calling me Renee. I'm like, how'd that happen?
Because you're not in my specialty.
It don't matter. I was still attending, and frankly, if you had come into my OR,
well, we weren't in an OR setting though.
But if you had come into my OR, you would have had to call me Dr. Volney.
I don't have to call you anything.
Yes, you did. Yes, you would. Yes, you would.
I would not have to call you anything. Out of respect, I would have just said, hey, Dr. V, you know what's going on. Yeah. But I wouldn't have to call you anything.
Yes, you would. Yes, you would. And then I would call you Nee, the lowly resident.
Can you help me, Nee, fix this bowel perf?
No, because you would have been walking in with your
talking
attending.
About continuous certification.
Because you would have been walking in with your attending, just the same way that I would have been walking in with my resident.
Well, that's what happened at
Thank you.
That's what happened at Robert Wood Johnson. That's not what happened at Morehouse.
Yeah, because y'all are reckless.
Also board certified though. Also,
which don't mean nothing.
So yours don't mean nothing?
No, it don't mean nothing. Board certification don't mean nothing.
Kim, good question. We'll reach out to you because we got your phone number.
Yes.
And let you know how to incorporate all that stuff. But you can make it work. You just got to recognize that it's not going to look the way how the majority of the experiences that you have at your program, at your medical school, the majority of people are not going to be doing this. And that's fine. And you have to be able to understand that, hey, it's going to require some flexibility. But this is a good question. I don't know if she
has a spouse or not, but, it's important to, if you already, have a spouse or, are looking for a spouse, that you make sure that this is something very upfront, in the relationship that you say that you want to do, because that will definitely impact.
Breakup material.
It's not breakup material.
But it
is definitely an important part of your career, right? They say.
Well, but she would have mentioned that already. She not mentioning that.
Well, it doesn't matter. She just said she want to know how it would be with kids. That's what she said. So I don't know if she's planning on having a spouse or not. But if you are, then take that into consideration because.
Real quick, before we jump into our next question, just want you guys to know, if you go to the show notes in the podcast, or if you check in the show description, if you're watching on YouTube, what's up, y'all? There is a link that we have there that we want you guys to take a look at. It's a free download. 7 considerations before starting locum tenens. The link is there. And we go through the 7 things that you need to consider before you jump into locum tenens. I think a lot of people are really interested, and it's going to lead into our next question. But a lot of people have so many different questions about, should it be a locum tenens independent person, individual, or should they be an agent whatsoever? But check out that free download and let us know, what your email is so that we can get in contact with you, or at least send you this information ASAP. All right. Make sure you check out 7 considerations before starting locum tenens. All right, let's take a quick break. All right, we are back. Our next question, I think we answered this already, but it's all good. My memory, but we're going to answer this because this is actually a really good question. This is from Dr. Cesar. Is it Cesar? S.
Cesar.
So he says, my name is Dr. Caesar, full-time locum hospitalist, interested in opening my own agency. I don't know. Everybody wants to do their own agency.
Yeah, because everybody want to be their own boss. I don't blame them.
I saw 2 of your YouTube videos about starting a locum agency, and I had a couple of questions. One, if I do locum work in a hospital that, for example, is through, I'm just going to say
the S group,
an S group, which is a
locum
agency. Maybe it's not a locums agency though, but if it is, does that mean I can't recruit hospitals in other places that work with the same group, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a group of doctors, not the agency.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. So he currently works as a hospitalist?
Yes.
And he's with a certain group?
He's with a company. It's not
right.
it's not a locums, but it's
but it's a group. It's meaning it's a company.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hence why I said company, Dr. Renee. Okay. I know everything. All right. And then number 2, what is the best way to approach a hospital to see if interested in contracting a locum agency? So he wrote some additional things. I'm going to cut that off. So just for the sake of the question. 3, also in one of your video, you mentioned a couple of times that you need a VA. What does that mean? And then 4, do you know the best source links for malpractice, depending on state, type of attorney to help with contracts, and who to ask about other licensing or paperworks to have besides the LLC S Corp for the company? All right. So this is
a lot of questions, Cesar.
It's a lot of questions, but these are good. These are really good questions.
They are good questions.
We're not going to get into all of this, but I think the biggest thing, I think we're going to answer 2 of these questions. Then it's going to be story time because I got a good story. Remember that story I was telling you about with that doctor?
No.
You don't? Okay. Well,
it'll be like I'm hearing it for the first time.
You're going to hear it for the first time. So the first question is, if I do locum work in a hospital that, for example, is through a group, that does that mean I can't recruit hospitals in other places, that hospital with the same group? Basically what he's saying is he's only working at this one hospital because he's with that group. So,
but that group works out of different hospitals.
He wants to know if that group works at different hospitals, could he try to go to those other hospitals and say, hey, I want to do a side competing deal and bring my other agency to work at your hospital, even though I know that you're using the same group that I work for? And I'm going to say likely not.
Check the fine print.
Yeah.
Check your contract.
Most companies, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to name this company, but I looked them up and they're doctor run. That don't mean nothing because doctors are all about capitalism. Doctors are all about making money also. And the number one asset when you are working with a group that is sending doctors to a hospital is to protect the IP and to protect the IP is the doctors. That's it, right? And what I mean by that is not like literally protecting the doctors, but not allowing the doctors to get out of their contractual agreement to work at these hospitals through that company, right? So long story short is if I got a bunch of doctors and they're working at that hospital, I'm going to make it really hard for that hospital to try to recruit those doctors outside of this contract, right? Because that completely deads everything. Like the strength of being the middleman, that's what these companies are making money as. The strength of being the middleman is being able to tie doctors in and saying, hey, if you leave, you are in breach of this contract. And then on the other end, these same companies tell the hospitals, if you try to recruit this doctor, you're going to owe us like 50 stacks, right? And then what ends up happening is a risk-benefit ratio. If the hospital really wants this person, would they go and not only put them in an employee contract, but also have to pay that other company
buy them out, basically,
to buy them out? Is it worth it to do that? I don't know. But either way, this is business. This is capitalism. Yeah. This is cutthroat.
Read your contract.
I'm telling you right now, read your contract and just know that these places will come for you. So I would be careful. And in my opinion, I would just steer clear of any hospital that this group that you are working for, if that group is servicing that other hospital and you want to work there as a locums, I wouldn't do it. But read your contract.
I mean, I guess my question to Dr. Cesar would be, why specifically do you want to work, or why specifically do you want to recruit, those hospitals to potentially your own agency when there are so many different hospitals? Is it because you know that they are more susceptible to accepting, groups and locums and things like that? Because the answer, honestly, if that's the question, then the answer is there are lots of hospitals out there who are looking for locums, who are looking, for staffing. And I think if you were to go to any job board or whatever, you would see a lot of companies who are asking for locums, who are asking, for staffing. So I don't think it's necessary to go to the hospital specifically that your group works with.
So my only suspicion is probably this group works in a certain geographic area.
Mm-hmm.
And that geographic area is also the same place that this doctor works in.
Yeah, it's desirable. Yeah.
So that's usually the situation, which is I know these hospitals that are in my geographic region. Right. I don't know these other places that are in a different area. So if this group has a lockdown on all of these hospitals that are in a certain mile radius, it's going to make it really difficult.
Right.
So I don't know.
But that's my biggest
suspicion. It ain't worth it.
Yeah, risking the relationship with the group that you currently work, I think is not worth it. But read your contract, read the fine print, because if it doesn't say anything about it, then maybe all bets are off.
Just be prepared, yo. All is fair in business. I'm just telling you right now. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it, but if it's not in your contract and you can go ahead and do it, just know that they will come for you.
Yeah.
In some form or fashion. So
yeah, because that's kind of like it would be kind of like a non-compete, basically.
So the next question he has is, what is the best way to approach a hospital to see if interested in contracting a locum agency? I asked because I work in different states. My plan was to ask around in other hospitals around the area. I'm currently doing locum work at that moment. So I actually think what you're saying is a good idea. Look, there's many different ways you can go about this. My opinion is to go in as an individual, get your foot in the door and just say, there's more docs like me that are coming, that come through my company, and I have an agency, so why don't you just contract with me? I think hospitals tend to be more resistant if you come in as a doctor saying that you have a locums agency. That's my opinion. I think it could work, but I think they're more likely to not take you seriously.
It's about the verbiage.
Yeah. What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Meaning that if you go, I have my own locums agency versus, listen, I have a lot of doctors, that I can bring to the table, right? I think people are more susceptible to that, right? They're more likely to respond to that. So, for example, this is why hospitals like to recruit, doctor and spouse teams, right? Where they say, oh, you're a doctor and your wife is a doctor. Yeah. Come on in, right? But if you say, well, my wife and I, we do a locums company, they're gonna be like, what? Like, doctors don't do business. Like, what y'all talking about?
Well, but I think there's other reasons why they would say no to that outside of that. I think the biggest thing that I would say with that is hospitals, they're not trying to work with locums, right? Unless they have to. But what they want is a consistent, warm body on the schedule.
Butts in the seat.
And with locums, you just have way too much autonomy that they are very comfortable with, right? So I think that ends up being the issue. It's like, listen, I get that you want to work here and you want to be locums, but I need someone who's going to work the fifth. And that's it. And if you're saying that you're not available and I can't force you to, then that's a problem.
Right.
I'm not saying that that's an overall problem or that's your problem as a locums doc, but that's a problem for them.
Right.
So that could be the major issue. But I would definitely say that the best way, so do you think the best way, do you agree with that? The best way is to come in as an individual and then be like the Trojan horse, or is it just say, be open and honest and say, hey, look, I got a locums agency and I want to contract with you. I would say that it's best to come in and just be like, yo, we're cheaper than everybody else. Because that's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line, right? Yeah. Is that, we're cheaper than everybody else. Now, what you don't want is to lowball so much so that now you're not really getting what you even deserve. And then on top of that, you can't give the people who you're recruiting to come to get what they deserve either, right? So there's like a balance of that. I think that, you come in and you basically say, if you can avoid saying the word locum for a long time, I would, personally.
That's a good point. I agree.
Right?
I agree with you
I
100%
would
there.
avoid saying that word,
Yeah.
even though the concept is the same. You're coming in, you're independently contracted. You can say, hey, listen, I'd like to contract with you. I have a lot of other doctors who,
I agree.
will be coming in with me
Yeah,
who are very
you bring it up with
interested.
some good points.
Yeah, because what they want to know is, like you said, can you feel the schedule? That's the first thing, right? And this is something we're kind of getting into it, but these are the things that we're going to be discussing in our locums course, right? Is how do you approach a hospital? How do you approach a facility? And finding out the things that they want so that you can, essentially appeal to the things that they need. Right. And so you mentioned before the 7 considerations. If you sign up for that particular
7 considerations before starting locum
if you
tenens.
sign up for that, you'll also be on the list that introduces when we're going to be talking about the course and introducing the course. But, these are things that we're going to be talking about. Like if you can, bring other people with you and say, hey, the strength of me is that I bring other people with me who can fulfill this particular need so that you don't have to worry about holes in the schedule. I think that is, you have a problem, I have a solution. And at the end of the day, right, because your contract is not going to say locums. Our contracts don't say locums. Our contracts say independent contractors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, but essentially it's the locums, right? So who really cares?
You done?
Yeah.
So the third question he asks is, in one of your videos, you mentioned a VA.
Mm-hmm.
A VA is a virtual assistant. Usually you get a virtual assistant is someone that you hire online, you interact with them online, and they usually live in a different geographical location. It could be in the United States, unlikely, but usually they're in a different country. And what they're really good at is doing like repetitive tasks.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you need timesheets from all the doctors who are working under the company, or they need to send out like travel arrangements and you need like a PDF that's sent to the doctor who's traveling. Hey, like, here's the flight you're going to catch. Here's your car rental. And then here's your hotel information. Things that you don't want to do,
Right.
but are very important, right? Like that are very repetitive. That's what a VA, particularly in this sense, is really good for.
Yeah.
So I think that's something to keep in mind. But I'm not going to answer the last question because I think that's, you just got to get into too much depth. But I want to do story time real quick.
Okay. So the last question was about malpractice.
Yeah.
I think, that's a little more in depth than we have time for today.
Take it where you can, Dr. Season. Take it where you can. So, this one
Sign up.
There's one thing that I want to talk about. It actually speaks to your first question, which is, working at the same hospital as, the group that you're working with, right? We're basically like going against a non-compete clause. So let's just say Dr. A works with Locums Company A. Locums Company sends this doctor to a hospital. This doctor knocks it out the park. She does extremely well. She works very hard. And, this happens a lot at times. The hospital asks doctor, hey, why don't you work for us, or let's work together, and you get out of your contract with the Locums Company and go from there. Doctor says, sure.
Now I know who you're talking about.
Not knowing that when she probably signed an agreement between her and the Locums Company, in there it basically forbids solicitation by the hospital to the doctor.
Well, it probably doesn't forbid it, but it probably has a contingency.
Possibly.
Most likely a contingency.
Right. But I do know most contracts that I've seen say there is no solicitation of any employees in the Locums Company or any agents of the Locums Company, right? Mm-hmm. Which could be sometimes be thought of as the docs, right?
Yeah.
So what happens when the doctor and the hospital, they get into a contract and it's like, yeah, this is going to be great. And then someone gets cold feet. Let's say it's the hospital. They get cold feet and they're like, you know what, this is not going to work anymore. Mm-hmm. But the contract has been signed by both parties, so it's executed. But that doctor never told the Locums Company that, hey, I'm not going to be on your rolls anymore. I'm not going to be taking, I'm not going to be working at this hospital anymore starting in 2 months.
Right. Under Locums assignments.
So I had a situation where I had to talk to someone about this because this person was explaining to me everything that's going on. And I'm just sitting there like, did you not tell your locums company that you're not going to be working for them in about 2 months? No, I haven't. I didn't think I needed to. And I was like, wow. Right? Like the reason I bring this up is, listen, we talked about board certification earlier in the show and the education that you have. This is business.
No board certification needed for this.
This is business, yo. The biggest thing that these locums companies will do, and they will fight tooth and nail, is to protect you from going to the hospital that they send you to. Yeah. So they're going to make it really difficult. So I would say, listen, this happens actually a lot where the hospital will try to recruit you, but you got to be very open and transparent and let your locums company know, hey, they're trying to recruit me. And just like Dr. Renee said, a lot of times they'll say, oh, yeah, you know what? Actually, we do have a provision for that. It's just that it's going to cost us the hospital's going to have to pay us like 50 stacks, sometimes even 75 stacks.
Or more, who knows?
Or more.
Depending on their individual contracts.
Because you got to consider, right? Like, if the hospital signs this doctor, the locums company is missing out on a whole
lot of money.
So they're going to want pay. They're going to want, remuneration for this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at me using these big words and stuff. Start saying remiss. Start wearing a bow tie and stuff, right?
Okay.
Wouldn't mind if I wear a bow tie?
I wouldn't mind at all.
Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, that's something that I was telling this person about. I was like, you need to get a lawyer. And, they were hesitant at first, but I'm like, listen, like, when $75,000 or $100,000 gets thrown out because that needs to be paid to buy you out, like at this point, like the mistakes that you're making, you need to talk to a lawyer about this stuff. Because first of all, the fact that the hospital has cold feet and they have an executed contract, who's to say that they're not going to go to the locums company and the locums company is going to be like, yo, somebody owes us money because this person doesn't work for us anymore because this person has a relationship with the hospital now. Now, I know I'm talking like nebulous and so forth, but just know that this is a big deal, guys.
Well, my question to you about this was, how she signed a contract with the hospital without consulting a lawyer?
That happens a lot. That happens a lot. Y'all listening, you guys are listening, and you know this happens a lot.
She don't listen to the show.
Yeah, that should not happen.
That's a big fat no-no. That's a huge no-no, And so now the question is this going to cost her? Is this going to cost her relationship with the locums company? Is this going to cost her relationship with the hospital? Is this going to cost her dollars?
Especially since the hospital was having cold feet.
Right.
And now they don't want to move forward with the contract. So then how do you even get out of the contract because it's executed? Well,
the only other thing that I could say is, so the only way that she can get out of this scot-free and nobody knows anything is that if the hospital really has cold feet and is like, I don't want to execute, she goes, well, I don't want to execute either. And nobody says anything to the locums company. You rip up the contract like it never happened. That is literally the only way that she can get out of this.
Yeah, but an addendum has to be written up.
No, it doesn't. You just rip up the contract. The contract no longer exists.
Really?
It just doesn't exist.
Okay.
I mean, if there are any lawyers out there, if there's a mutual agreement that this contract doesn't exist anymore, right? If you say, well, you were in breach anyway, and I was in breach anyway, and I don't want to pay.
Well, doesn't have to be said on email anyway, though? Or like some type of documentation. Something has to be documented that you're walking away, I'm walking away, and that's it.
Well, yeah, you could do that. I mean, you could certainly do that and just be like, all right, I don't want to be in it anymore. Or if you actually signed, you could just rip up the contract. As long as there's no copies of the contract no longer exists. You just shred it.
Yo, locums companies be like music industry, yo. This is like the music industry, basically.
If she write a book, they owe them money too.
I'm telling you, it's like 360 deals. They got you.
Is she go?
Just be careful.
She go on concert. She go on tour. She owe them money too.
Be careful, y'all. Like listen, I'm not saying this to get you guys to just stay in your employed positions or in your academic positions. If you want to go, you want to go. That's fine. All I'm just saying is just make sure you talk to a professional about this stuff. Yeah. Just that's all you can do.
Move.
Talk to a professional about this. It's going to cost a little bit of some money, but it's an investment that's well worth it, right? At least you're moving in confidence, and nothing is going to come up and sneak you. You're not going to get sneak attacked, basically.
Right.
And I think that if you're interested in starting your own locums agency, it behooves you to really get a lawyer who understands, who really understands the lay of the land, not only contractually, but also in your field, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you get a lawyer who doesn't really understand, first of all, lawyers understand contracts, right?
Well,
if they don't understand
lawyers,
but if they don't, but if they don't even understand your field, really,
right,
they could be negotiating on your behalf, or even just putting stuff in language in your contract that is not relevant.
Yeah.
So then, when the hospital looks at this, they're like, "What the hell is this?"
Right.
So there's something to be careful of.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll leave it at that.
So the only other consideration I would have, and I don't know if we know the answer to this, is does she have damages, i.e., did she buy a house? Did she commit to a mortgage, right? Thinking, you know what, I'm going to be moving here in a couple of months. I better settle down here. Now, if that happened, she is likely not to let go of that contract, which we know a lot of doctors do that crap, right? They commit themselves to some sort of mortgage, some sort of something, before things really are rolling and before they know whether or not they really want to stay at this facility in that capacity.
This is the second example I talked about of someone being an independent contractor and then deciding to stay at that place. And look,
because then she would have damages, and at that point,
why
she would want to sue somebody.
Why?
But it's like, could she actually sue for damages if she's the one that was in breach of a contract?
It's possible, yeah.
I mean, it's also always possible to sue anybody.
If there's any lawyers listening, let us know.
Yeah, because, isn't there like the doctrine of clean hands? You got to come in with clean hands.
You've been watching a lot of Judge Judy.
I watched Judge Judy. Well,
anyway, listen, guys. Dr. Caesar.
Law school, I'll let you know.
Dr. Caesar and Kim, thank you for writing into Docs Outside the Box. Everybody, thank you for giving me what's up on my board certification, even though this episode ain't come out. But I know y'all love me that much, and y'all gonna give me props for getting recertified. American Board of Surgery, do better. American Board of Surgery, do better. Listen, guys, we're gonna catch you guys on the next episode of Docs Outside the Box, yo. If you got any questions, make sure you send it to us. We're going to answer it because I got all the answers, yo. I got you.
Entertainment purposes only.
Don't come and sue us.
Okay.
Catch you guys in the next episode.
Peace.
Peace.